Hi there, welcome to Floating in Books, and today's video is going to be a little differently from what I had announced. I said I was going to do a fashion video, but I ran out of time, so we're going to chat about books again instead. I hope you don't mind, this is a book channel after all, and today we're talking about, I think it's 15 book series that are still on my TBR, so let's get chatting. So let me introduce myself. My name is Maaike. I'm from the Netherlands. I like to come on this channel to chat about books, fashion, and a bit of lifestyle. But my main game is my main channel, which is my makeup channel, which is all linked in the description box down below. If you want to find me on Goodreads, that's all down there. So check that out if you want to know a little bit more about me. And today I thought we could just chat about some book series that are still on my TBR. Very often these books are things I've already chatted to you about. I may have hauled these, but for the most part I haven't really talked about them yet. And some of these I would like to get to really soon, whereas others are a bit on the back burner, and some of them have been on the big back burner for a while. So let's just get chatting and let's get down with these 15 book series that are on my TBR. So first up, we have Brent Week's The Black Prism series. This is the first book in the Lightbringer cycle, I believe it's called. I believe it's 4 books. This is chunky, and it just sounded really good to me. It's a magic system where some magicians can control light, and we get the life story of one of the magicians that's like the most powerful with this kind of skill, if I remember correctly. I believe this series has been completed now, and I've heard mixed reviews on this. A lot of people were raving about the first book in the series, which is why I bought it. But then the other books came around, and then I felt the reviews were just not as exciting anymore. So that's why I'm not entirely sure whether I want to read the whole thing. But I still have the first book on my shelves to see what this book series is all about, and if I may want to get stuck in. Similarly, this is Peter V. Brett's The Painted Man, and this is actually a book that I picked up after I saw a lot of my students sort of putting this on their reading list. So at one of my jobs, I used to give students an assignment, well, not me, but me and the other English teachers on the team would give them an assignment to work on their English independently, and one of the suggestions we gave them to do so was to read books, and there were actually a couple of people who were interested in fantasy books, and they started reading this. I believe this is about like demon armies, zombie-like sort of like, I don't know. It's sort of kind of dystopian but fantasy at the same time. That's sort of what I'm getting, like if I remember correctly, but I have no clue anymore what this is exactly supposed to do. I just remember that a lot of people were raving about this, and that's why I picked it up, but I haven't really sat down to read this, and I believe it's, again, quite a few books in the series, so I'm not sure if I want to get started on this, if there are still some other ongoing series that I'm in the midst of or that I want to prioritize. And then I do have this entire box set, the Joe Abercrombie The Forest Law trilogy. This is very much raved about. So I've never read anything by Joe Abercrombie. I have no clue what this is about. I've just been told that it's good. And the box set was cheaper than buying these books individually, and one day I just had a gift voucher and I was like, might as well pick it up, so I did pick this up, and I think this is actually on my series shelves, because whenever I have a complete series, it goes onto the series shelves, which are right behind me here, and you're looking at shelves of books that I'm either like in the midst of reading or that I finished, so I kind of put the books I still want to read on like eye level, and this is definitely part of that section of the bookshelf. So this is definitely one I want to prioritize, because this is right front and center where I usually go looking for new books. So maybe once I've read the Mistborn trilogy by Brandon Sanderson, I might want to get stuck in this as a series I might want to get to, but I've got some other ones that I think I may want to read first. Moving on to the pile behind me, I really hope it's not going to fall. I really, really do. So this is Robert Jackson Bennett's City of Stairs. And I also have the first book in his other series, which is called Foundry Side. This is one of those fantasy authors that I hear a lot of people always raving about on BookTube, but I just haven't read anything. It sounds fun, but I don't exactly know what this is about anymore. I believe this is quite like politics heavy. I'm sure that's what was this game here. But, you know, I tend to sort of treat my bookshelves as a library. And then, you know, whenever it's time to read another book, I'm like, I want to read some fantasy. Then I might go into this, read the blurb on the back, and sort of treat it like my own curated bookstore to find out what book I want to read next. So yeah, this is definitely one that I may want to get to at some point. I believe, again, this series has been completed as far as I know. And you'll actually see that it's a lot of like first book in a series and I don't have the other ones, because that's usually how I used to shop for books, is that I would buy the first book of a series and then I would decide whether I wanted to try the other ones. And in recent years, I have found that if I have the complete series, I'm much more likely to actually start the series. Whereas if I have just one book, and this has happened to me so many times, I start reading it, I love it, and then I end up wanting to buy the other books straight away, and then I get very sucked into it. So yeah, that's why there's a lot of like one book that I have. This was recommended to me by one of you, I believe. I believe this was when I first started my channel, someone recommended I pick this up. C.S. Harris, the What Angels Fear. And this is a first book, and it's like historical fiction sort of series in 1811, which, if you know anything about me, if it's a detective story set in a historical setting, and especially if it's in England, I'm game. And that's, I think, why someone said, maybe you want to read this. I just haven't gotten around to it. My edition is a little, like a cheapy edition. It's like this very small paperback with quite a lot of text crammed onto the pages. So I do hope I end up liking this, but yeah, I haven't picked up any other books in this series because I need to try it first. Next up is The Lies of Loch Lamora by Scott Lynch. This is again, has this been completed? I don't think it has. I think people are still waiting on like one book in this series. This is again a book I heard so many people raving about when I first started watching BookTube, and that's why I ended up actually picking this up. Again, not one that I want to read straight away. It's again an edition that, you know, it's one of those like really floppy paper bags. I know some people love those, but I don't really mind it. I mean, it's quite, again, like quite packed, small letters, and it is over 700 pages. So that's probably why I haven't got around to it yet. Like, it looks like a small book, but there's a lot of text in this one. So I've heard it's good. It's apparently about pirates and a heist in this first one, which sounded very intriguing. I like a good adventure story, but still fantasy at the same time. It's like this little, like a band, the Gentlemen Bastards, I believe they're called. And Loch Lamora is the leader of the pack, and he's a pathological liar. That's what I remember from it. I watched a booktuber who really hyped this up, so I no longer watch her, so I'm not entirely sure where that came from. But yeah, Lies of Loch Lamora is, I think, a good one. Let me know if you've read this one, what you think. If you saw my most recent book haul, then you will have seen this one, The Shadow of the Gods by John Gwynne. Now, and this is a fantasy author who has released a lot of different fantasy novels, and none of them have really appealed to me, but then this one had a dragon and like this little warrior guy at the front. It says absolutely nothing on the back. There's no blurb. It just says, set in a brand new Norse-inspired world and packed with myth, magic, and bloody vengeance, The Shadow of the Gods begins an epic new fantasy saga from best-selling author John Gwynne. All I had to hear was Norse-inspired, because I live for Norse-inspired anything. So I was game. It's got a dragon at the front. I was like, yes. So it was mainly a cover buy. And then just an author I'm nervous to start, and I felt the same way about Brandon Sanderson before I read the first Mistborn novel, and that's Robin Hobb. Assassin's Apprentice is the first book in, I don't even know which series it is. She has several series, and it's not listed anywhere which one it is. I would have to look it up. And Robin Hobb is very much raved about in the fantasy community as being one of the best, like, OG fantasy writers. Apparently the second series is much better, but it is recommended that you read the first series before you get to the second one. So yeah, that's kind of all I know about this. And that's pretty much where it ends. So I just picked up the first one because I'm a bit nervous because this author has like, what, 15, 16 books out. It's like 5 trilogies. So I'm like, do I want to commit? You know, there are these fantasy stories where after a while there's just so many books out and it just makes you so overwhelmed because you're like, but wait, why should I read 8 books? And this, you know, this doesn't seem too long. Again, quite small letters, but it's just over 400 pages. So that seems more manageable than something that's like over 700 pages with a lot of text. But yeah, that's Robin Hobb. Would like to read it someday, but not a priority. The Bear and the Nightingale by Catherine Arden. This one is actually more central to, that's actually what we're getting to right now, some of the things that are more central to my still to read book series shelf that I have all the books from. So I have all the books from this series, and this, again, much raved about. And I actually put it on my winter reading recommendations because I think it's perfect for winter time. It's sort of like Eastern European inspired folklore and mythology that's woven into this, I believe. So that has me very intrigued. And yeah, I heard it's very whimsical, so it sounded really good. But again, one of those books that was hyped up back when I was watching BookTube all the time. And as I wasn't reading much, I kind of also fell off the BookTube wagon there. So if you have any recommendations of other creators that you like to watch who have good recommendations, because I don't tend to watch a lot of people who read books anymore. So I've unsubscribed from most of them. There's still a couple, but I don't know. It's so often about new books that I don't know. I kind of had enough as well, because I just also want to read what's on my shelves and not have this need to only buy the newest of the new. This big guy. This is A Winter's Promise by Christelle Dabot, and this is originally written in French and it's translated into English, I believe. And this is the Mirror Visitor Book 1, and I believe it's about a girl in a castle in the sky. This, in my local bookstore, is sold in the YA department, and there are 4 books out. The 4th book is like this, but then red. And I do have books 2 and 3, but I don't have the 4th one. But this is, again, one that one day I would like to read for sure. Not a priority. Mine is a little discolored, which is a bit of a shame. Like, the spine has changed color. So I don't know much else about it. Another one of those, like, hyped up BookTube things, and then it kind of fell by the wayside because I wasn't reading much for, like, a year or 2. But yeah, it seems enjoyable. But I think I'd pick up the 4th book before I start reading this. Is that terrible? And a book that at first didn't make many waves, but I actually see a lot of people talking about this series, Gideon the Ninth by Tamsin Muir. And this is about necromancy, I believe. It's a weird one. It's apparently like an acquired taste. I have 2 books from this series. Apparently there's a new one out already. And the cover, like, this made me want to read it. So I was like, okay, these are a little bit more on the expensive side, though. Again, maybe because it's a translation, because I believe the original is in German? Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not entirely sure on that one. But yeah, this is, again, apparently very enjoyable, dark, which I tend to love. So this is one, again, I just need to get to. And then something you did already see me talking about in my 2023 TBR, Jade City by Fonda Lee. This is actually the series that I think of picking up most when I think of what series to get stuck in if I do get myself through the entire Mistborn trilogy. I only have 1 book left. The plan is to read that in March and to get stuck into that. So yeah, Jade City by Fonda Lee is definitely next on the list. This is apparently about feuding families, and jade is the common commodity, and it's like this organized crime sort of world. That's all I know. That's all I needed to know, and I want to read them all, and I do own all 3 books. And then a series that took me ages to complete. I had this first one, The Diviners by Libba Bray, sitting on my bookshelf for so long, and apparently this is like paranormal set in the 1920s and there's some like crime mystery involved, that has always intrigued me. But the mismatching of the series is probably what's putting me off, which is a petty reason, I understand. Is it here? Can you still see it? Oh, I don't think you can. It's just off screen, but every edition of this book looks different, which it's like the series doesn't match up, which is just a bit confusing. But apparently this is really good. I believe it's more on the YA side of things though. And I'm kind of over YA a little bit. Like, do I really? Yeah, you know what I mean? So that's why The Diviners by Libba Bray is still on the reading list. It's definitely front and center on one of my shelves, but maybe later in the year, like this could be a good fall read, I think, with the paranormal and the darkness in the 1920s. Maybe a good fall read. We'll see when we get to this. Maybe not this year, though. And then Red Sister by Mark Lawrence. Now this one has caught up with me because this author has been pretty much canceled by most people who I follow on BookTube, and I have no clue why. Apparently something happened over on Twitter, and I'm a little clueless to it, but by that time that happened, I had already bought the entire trilogy because everybody was raving about it, how it's great, because apparently this is about assassin nuns. Like nuns who are assassins at the same time. Again, I didn't need to know anything else, and I was like, I want to read that. So I still have these sitting on my shelf. Again, something I put off ever since my huge, like, 1.5 year reading slump happened, and I just need to get round to some of these things that I bought before then because, you know, these have been on my shelves for some time, and now that my reading pace has picked up, I'm like, yes, I think I really, really do want to get to this at some point again, but again, may not happen this year because I definitely want to get through some bigger books as well. Just saying. And last but not least, I showed this book to you last week or 2 weeks ago as well, Andrew Caldicott's Rather Weird, as a book that nobody ever talks about. This is a book series, and I'm still not sure whether this is supposed to be fantasy or historical fiction. But yeah, it's a series, a 3-part book series with the nice black sprayed edges that just really appeal to me. It's apparently set in like Tudor-esque times, but there is this man who is an outsider who comes to this town called Rotherweird, which apparently did exist for real, or does exist for real, and that he uncovers all of the deeply buried secrets. So there seems to be like a mystery element to it at least. If it's historical fiction, could be paranormal at some point. So I'm not entirely sure what's going to happen in this. I've never heard anybody talking about this. I just picked this up at the bookstore because I like the front. Like, I like the cover. That was why. So, yeah, that's another book that, again, is higher on the priority list. I haven't read any sort of, like, really good historical fiction in a while. Again, historical fiction does tend to take a little bit more time to read. But, yeah, I do seem to enjoy those kind of books, so I can't wait to get stuck into this at some point. So there you have it. Those were all of the books that are still on my shelves that are somehow part of a series that I would like to get to at some point. These are my book series that are on my TBR. Is it realistic to be reading all of these things? For sure it's not. And that's why I have a lot of like just a first book in a series, so I can maybe just try it and see if I like it, and then I might get stuck in and read the rest. That's sort of the plan with some of these like more long-standing things for sure. So yeah, let me know in a comment down below what book series are on your TBR. I'd love to know. And then for now, I would like to thank you very much for watching. Come back next week because I've just kind of decided to switch around the fashion video and the book video. So this was supposed to go live next week, but then we'll do the fashion video that I had planned originally for today. So hope you like to come back for that, and then I hope to see you in my next video. Bye bye everyone, see you then.